Hey YouTube, today we're going to change both the internal and external filters on an Allison transmission. This one here happens to be a 2016, but the other ones are very similar. After doing this for, quite a few years, I found that if you go ahead and suck the transmission fluid out before you get started, you make a lot less of a mess. Now I use a fluid extractor, air operated, made by Mighty Vac, but Harbor Freight sells a very similar fluid extractor. Now this pan here actually has a drain bolt in the bottom of it, unlike many you see. I went ahead and took it loose just to see if anything would come out. Nothing. So you could just pull this plug instead of sucking the transmission fluid out through the dipstick hole. That would work too. To remove the external filter, I just use a oil filter strap wrench. Just spin it off, just like you would an oil filter, and then spin the new one on. Here you can see that there's a magnet that fits on top of the oil filter there. And it's usually covered with, I don't know, debris, just from the transmission operating. You'll want to put that back after you clean it, and then spin the filter back on. Next, you want to remove all the transmission pan bolts. They are 13 millimeter. Carefully lower the transmission pan and pull straight down to remove the filter. Next, you'll want to clean the pan out itself. I just use some brake clean. It's tempting to use a rag right here, but do not use a rag in the transmission. It's just bad practice. Don't get in the habit of it. Just rinse it out and then blow it dry with some compressed air or something like that. These are the part numbers I used on this transmission for the internal and external filter. The internal transmission filter installs by just pushing it up in the hole, just aligning everything. Next, you want to start all the bolts by hand. Next, I use a power tool just to run the bolts up. I don't tighten them. I just run them up till they touch. I next use a 1/4 inch ratchet and torque all the bolts by hand. When you get the pan back on, you'll want to rinse any remaining transmission fluid residue off. Next, we're back under the hood. I started out by filling this thing up with 8 quarts transmission fluid, and it ended up holding just under 10 quarts, and it holds Dextron 6. It's kind of hard to see right here, but the fluid level is actually between the hot and the cold mark. This engine was not hot, but it was not cold either. And that's it. This service is done.